Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jen Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. This week, we're talking about gray hair. So in May of this year, we had a few episodes on anti-aging, or rather, aging well and aging with health. So in response, I heard from a few of you asking about gray hair. You wanted to know what truly causes it, if it's preventable or potentially even reversible. So I aim to please. I made a note that you wanted to know, and now here we are. So let's start with the causes. So it was in our Age-Defying Insights episode where we briefly talked about stem cells. Your hair follicles have stem cells called melanocytes that produce melanin, which creates your hair color. So fun fact, there are two types of melanin. There's eumelanin and pheomelanin. Eumelanin creates brown and black colors. Pheomelanin creates red and brown colors. And it's the ratio between these two types of melanin that create your hair color. Although, quick caveat, redheads, there's a mutation in the MC1R receptor that creates red hair. So anyway, the stem cells turn over naturally as they do, and they really make melanin for a set amount of time. So as we age, healthy cell turnover happens. It's called apoptosis, 7th grade science, anybody? Okay. So the cells turn over and eventually they stop producing melanin, and then the new hair strands grow in lighter. And that's how we end up with different shades of gray, silver, or even white. Now, how quickly the cells turn over, how long they'll produce melanin is dependent on a few factors. And yes, genetics is the primary factor. So talk to your parents, grandparents, right? Hopefully they're still around, or look back at photos. When did they start going gray, right? Race is also a factor here. So there was a study that the average age of graying hair in Caucasian Americans is 34 versus 44 in African Americans, and Asian Americans were in between, like going gray in their late 30s. So like everything in health, nothing is 100% genetic. So let's talk about some lifestyle factors that play into going gray, or really, maybe we should call it premature graying of the hair. So one thing we often hear about is stress. So there was a study that was published in 2013 that looked at mice and saw a correlation between stress and graying hair. We just have to remember correlation is not causation. So if we try to rationalize through the connection, it's possible that stress may cause a person's hair to shed faster than normal, giving those cells that make melanin, for a certain amount of time, more work to do, right? Then when maybe the hair grows back, you're seeing the gray. It's also possible that the melanocytes are depleted when we're under stress. So I think it's more likely to say that stress doesn't cause graying, but causes existing graying to worsen, if that makes sense. The next lifestyle factor, interestingly, is smoking. So there was a study from 2013 that saw smokers in the study were 2.5 times more likely to go gray before age 30 than non-smokers. And smoking can also make silver gray hair look yellow. And then the final cause is probably more actually a combination of genetics and lifestyle, and that's nutritional deficiencies. So again, the research here shows more about correlation, not necessarily causation, but we see gray hair connected to insufficient vitamin D, B12, and ferritin. Ferritin is a protein found in cells. There was an analysis of a few studies where the researchers said hypopigmentation, right? So less pigmentation in the hair can be seen in nutritional deficiencies, protein, energy, malnutrition, and diseases of chronic loss of protein. Copper and iron deficiency may also be connected to the graying of hair. And then a study reported significantly lower levels of copper in patients with premature gray hair when compared to the control group. There have been occasional reports of zinc deficiency in premature gray hair. And then another study pointed to an association between premature gray hair and lower HDL cholesterol, lower good cholesterol. That was specifically in Indian patients who were younger than 25. So that same study also reported lower serum vitamin B12 and vitamin D. And then I've also seen premature gray hair connected to thyroid disease. So I think the long and the short of it is we really need more research on all of this. I just don't know how much demand there is for the research findings because, I mean, other than maybe premature gray hair being an indication of other things, there's really no health detriment to gray hair. So I don't know that we're going to get tons of funding. But this has brought up the question of what qualifies as premature, right? So we went through the average ages before. Premature qualifies as like 10 years or more before that average. So like 20 if you're white, 25 if you're Asian, 30 if you're Black. So in those age ranges, if you're seeing gray hair, it is premature. I would maybe look into some of these things. So then given nutrient deficiencies and lifestyle pieces, can we prevent or reverse gray hair? Maybe. Right? On the prevention side, it can certainly help to eat nutrition, right? Ensuring that our food choices are rich in protein, including lots of fruits and vegetables, getting tons of antioxidants and quality fat. We want to combat oxidative stress and certainly reducing stress, right? Can't hurt us. We want to think about movement and meditation, music. We've talked a lot over the years of Salad with a Side of Fries about what we can do to help with stress. Now, with that said, once a follicle stops making melanin, it's not going to all of a sudden start making melanin again. So that means reversible is only possible if the cause is linked to nutrients and lifestyle, and your intervention is early enough to get in front of, melanin production ceasing. So I suppose that there was something I read that talked about like, if we had more research, could we figure out some sort of topical tools or therapies for repigmentation of gray hair? Like maybe it would require that we address the underlying mechanism of the follicle, like melanocyte, right? Like those stem cells responding to a clinical intervention. And we need a lot more research, but it's possible. I mean, especially like you think about hair follicles are sort of close to the surface of the skin. Like maybe there is something that we could do.
In honor of today's episode, Swap Out, there's always Just for Men.
There you go.
Speaking of someone who's 50 years old, I'm just happy to have my hair. The fact that it's gray now, I don't really care about, but just a funny little anecdote. In my early 40s, I was at the barber shop getting my hair cut. Woman looks over at me and she goes, "You have very nice salt and pepper coloring." I said, "Thank you very much." And she says, "Is it natural?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Oh, do you dye it?" And it took me a minute. I'm like, why would anyone dye their hair from brown to gray?
Right.
It took me a minute. She was asking me if I dyed it from brown to gray, and that's when I officially felt old.
Right. Yeah. So that actually brings up a little true-false game we can play about gray hair. So have you heard that pulling out a strand of gray hair makes like 2 or 3 strands grow in its place?
No.
Okay, I've heard that. I know friends of mine have heard it. I found the answer. It is false, but also it's recommended that you don't pull out the gray hair because that can actually damage the follicle. And if you damage the follicle, no hair can grow from it. And eventually you could end up with much thinner hair.
Fair enough.
Did you feel like overnight you went gray?
I think it started gradually, but then one day I woke up and it was just all gray. Like I said, when I would get my haircut, I used to say, "Aim for the gray one." And it was a joke, and the barber laughed, but now I can't even say that.
Right. So I hear it all the time. People go, the gray hair like appeared overnight. So it's also false. It doesn't appear overnight, but gray hair does grow a lot faster than the rest of your hair. So according to some studies, the rate of growth and thickness of non-pigmented hair is significantly greater than dark hair. Gray beard hair can grow up to 4 times faster than pigmented hair. So no, it doesn't appear overnight, but it's also not your imagination that it like all of a sudden is 5 inches long, you know?
Fair enough.
All right, last true false. Gray hairs are unruly, wirely strands.
True.
Yeah, so it's true and false. So gray hairs are thinner than your natural hair color because the cuticle is thinner. And it's the cuticle that protects the hair from water, UV rays, humidity, chemicals, heat styling. So what this means is that gray hair doesn't have the same protection. So it loses water. It can feel dry, fragile, coarse, like that wiry texture. So you can use moisture treatments, hair oils. Some anti-frizz products may help too. A little pro tip, by the way, also, gray hair requires extra protection from the sun. So keep that in mind. And also, it's this texture piece and the follicle change that makes gray hair less likely to hold on to artificial color. So for everybody who has been dyeing their hair, it probably needs to happen more often once you're covering up gray than somebody who's dyeing pigmented hair. I think, you know, similar to what you were saying, like it wasn't until that person's comment that you felt old. And, you know, I don't know. I think gray hair maybe for a lot of people is an ego thing. I think there are some people who wear their gray proudly and it looks amazing. You know, like I think of, who do you think of?
Well, I mean, no one else is really going to get this reference, but my mom went prematurely gray. I would say, I mean, I'm 50 as long as I could remember. She's had Silver Fox.
Yeah. I mean, and like Meryl Streep's character in Devil Wears Prada, like it was beautiful. My grandma, actually similar to your mom, my grandma, her hair turned white. And I want to say that was maybe even like in her 20s, you know, and you said it before, Silver Fox, like it's a thing for a reason. So maybe it's time we embrace it, you know. I don't know. Also, no judgment, dye it, you know. I sit in the mirror and pick out my gray strands.
I tried it once and it felt like the guy painted my hair. It felt like literally a paintbrush.
Yeah. Well, that's what they use. Well, that's the lowdown on gray hair. Gary, any thoughts? Anything else to add?
No, I told you my barbershop story.
Right. Okay, awesome. All right. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your host, Jen Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jen Trepeck, JenNTrepeck. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I love nothing more than hearing from you. Send me your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me as your health coach.
And we'll try Nestle pizza when they come out.
Yes, we will try the Nestle pizza when they come out. Maybe we'll have to do another episode. More food swaps.
You got it.
All right. Gary, thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, everybody, if you are not already, join the membership by going to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. This shows the support for this podcast, this community, and most importantly, it truly supports your health. You'll get this week's recipe for the copycat Chick-fil-A nuggets and your quarterly live Q&A, which is just you and me for 30 minutes. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform, share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it and you are worth it. Happy healthy.